Hello everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy. I just wanted to throw out another handful of film recommendations as the weekend's coming up, and these of course as always are recommendations available through one of the three services that we offer for video. Those would be either CleveNet Overdrive, Hoopla Digital, or Canopy, okay? So our first recommendation comes from CleveNet's Overdrive, and that's the film The Sapphires. Now, The Sapphires is a musical comedy that takes place during the Vietnam War era, and it follows four young Australian Aboriginal women as they work to form a musical group that will then travel overseas to entertain the troops. So of course you're dealing with a ton of different themes. You're dealing with the difficulties and dangers of being in an actual war zone, intergroup dynamics. You're also dealing, of course, with racial strife back in Australia. And these rather heavy themes somehow still sort of come together in what ends up being a really comic and life-affirming film. And it's also wonderful for people who love music but maybe don't love musical theater. All of the singing in this comes through with with actual performances. So people don't just randomly burst into song. The music comes in when they're on stage, or if they're auditioning for something. So it doesn't really break any walls the way sometimes musical theater does. And it's a crazy good soundtrack. It has tons of the big favorites from that era, so you're listening to things like Heard It Through the Grapevine, What a Man, Who's Loving You, really great songs, and they're performed amazingly well. Like, the lead singer is a fantastic performer. So definitely recommend it if you're a music fan. So that's The Sapphires. It's rated PG-13, and it's definitely going to be a fun one if you do love music. My second recommendation is from Hoopla and is definitely for fans of traditional musical theater or also for fans of Fractured Fairy Tales. And it's the film stage production of Into the Woods. Of course, there was a recent Disney adaptation of Into the Woods, but this is the original Broadway cast, so you have that entire storyline. You're going to be able to see Bernadette Peters as the witch. I've actually been a huge fan of this production. I actually even have the DVD of it. It's amazing. For people who are not super familiar with the storyline, Into the Woods weaves together several traditional fairy tales like Jack and the Beanstalk, Cinderella, Rapunzel, and blends them all together. And the best part is it asks and answers the question, what happens after happily ever after? The music is amazing. It's from Stephen Sondheim, who is absolute genius. He's done Sweeney Todd as well, Company, Merrily We Roll Along. I could go on forever. Anyway, hugely recommended. It's one of my favorite offerings from Hoopla. And if you like musical theater, again, or Fractured Fairy Tales, or beautiful music in general, I can't recommend it enough. My final recommendation for this week is from Canopy, and is the documentary I Am Big Bird. I Am Big Bird is the film equivalent of a warm hug. It chronicles the life of puppeteer Carol Spinney. Spinney was one of the absolute last of the Jim Henson original crew to still be working in the day-to-day puppeteering of shows like Sesame Street. He played, of course, Big Bird, but he also played Oscar the Grouch and countless other characters. I know for me, Sesame Street was a huge part of my childhood, so seeing behind the puppets and seeing the people who played them has always been fascinating to me. But Spinney was such an interesting man, and the film, it covers, his life, but it covers so much more. It covers the way he thought about what he was working on, the way he interacted with his fellow puppeteers, and then the guests. it's just a really moving documentary that you might cry, you might laugh, but will definitely leave you thinking a little bit at the end of it. Strongly recommended for people who grew up with shows like Sesame Street, but also recommended for anyone who's interested in the creative process, who's interested in puppeteering, things like that, or just in a very American experience, part of history. Um, so yeah, those are my 3 recommendations for the week. If you have recommendations for your fellow patrons, please do comment and let people know what you're watching, what things you've discovered that you want them to know about. And if you have any questions for us, please comment and private message us, and we'll hopefully get back to you very, very soon. We miss you all, and we can't wait to see you again sometime soon.